All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today we're looking at what is honestly a cinematic and truly profound analysis of modern society straight from our source material. We're going to expose the comfortable, cozy little illusions that keep so much of humanity literally asleep at the wheel. Think about your own life for just a second. Have you ever felt this massive, aching gap between the boundless potential you absolutely know is up in your head and the totally mundane reality of your daily routine? Like that nagging feeling that you're built for something huge, but you're just tethered to the ground? Well, if that hits home, you are in exactly the right place, because we're going to break down exactly why that happens and how to actually escape it.
So the material kicks things off with this chilling concept of the zombie civilization, or as the sources sometimes call it, the rat utopia. It describes modern society not as some thriving, beautiful community, but essentially as a human farm. Crazy, right? It's a system deliberately engineered to keep us sedated, obedient, and just endlessly consuming without ever actually living. It extracts our energy through fear and distraction, and what do we get in return? Empty, cheap dopamine. I mean, what does that actually look like day to day? It's those hours you lose to endless scrolling on your phone, chasing every little digital notification, and binge-watching content until your eyes literally glaze over. We're essentially taught to be these highly efficient cogs, specializing in our jobs, but totally lacking spirit, constantly looking for quick-hit material solutions to fill some seriously deep spiritual voids.
And there's this really stark contrast drawn between two totally different ways of existing. On one side, you've got the modern default of the masses. This is a life that is completely driven by external validation, this lingering fear of stepping out of line, and just nonstop mindless consumption. You're basically waiting around to be told what to do and what to care about. But on the flip side, we have the awakened state. Now, this is driven by internal sovereignty. This is where you become the absolute source of your own gravity. It's all about deliberate action and literally creating your own reality. Moving from that default setting to the awakened state, well, that requires essentially seceding from the psychological matrix we've all been dropped into.
Now, let's zoom in on the individual for a second, because we need to look at why it's so incredibly hard to just break out. The sources call this the spectator's trap. And it's tricky because you might see the matrix, you might totally understand how the world works, but you still end up stuck playing the role of an expert spectator. We actually get addicted to our own endless potential. Think about it. As long as we don't act, our potential remains perfect, right? It's infinite. So we just consume massive amounts of theory. We suffer from what the text brilliantly calls intellectual obesity. We're just gorging on podcasts, videos, and books. We use all this endless learning and stillness as a defense mechanism because, let's be real, we're completely terrified of the friction, the judgment, and the very real possibility of failure in the physical world.
Which brings us to a really harsh but totally necessary question. It's time for a little introspection about your own complicity in this passive matrix. Are you actually living life, or are you just spectating? You know, you might have the mental software of a true creator, but if you're running it on the hardware of a frightened mortal, it doesn't do you any good. A sleeping creator is indistinguishable from a casualty of the system. You've got to ask yourself if you are protecting your fragile ego at the ultimate cost of your actual existence. Because you can't just sit there and watch the game from the stands forever.
So, how do we break this paralysis? The absolute crucial point here is a monumental paradigm shift. Here it is. Action equals truth. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Your identity is not what you sit around daydreaming about. Your identity is what you repeatedly do. The physical world absolutely demands movement because reality is shaped by collision, not just contemplation. I mean, think about the difference between someone who spends 5 whole years theorizing the absolute perfect business plan in their bedroom versus someone who builds a messy, imperfect prototype and just tries to sell it on day one. The builder is the one who finds the truth. If you don't act, all that accumulated wisdom is just mental gymnastics. The only way to step out of the spectator stands and actually get on the field is to accept that reality only answers to execution.
And to actually bridge that gap between thinking and moving, we've got to dismantle a super dangerous illusion. The spectator's myth tells us that we have to wait around to feel motivated, or wait until we have perfect, absolute certainty before we can finally take action. But the creator's reality proves the exact opposite. Action is actually the ultimate cause of motivation. You literally cannot think your way out of a mental prison. You have to act your way out of it. True understanding, that only comes from getting your hands dirty in the messy, unpredictable friction of reality. Conviction isn't something you need before acting. It's actually the reward you get after you finally make a move.
Okay, now look at the mechanical difference between the people who stay stuck and the ones who actually break free. The sources refer to this as the law of complexity. If you look at the easy way, you'll see that when we try to avoid friction and constantly look for shortcuts, we just end up stacking these temporary, flimsy fixes on top of each other. Over time, that creates massive, completely unsustainable complexity. You're just constantly running around patching holes. But then, look at the hard way. By intentionally facing resistance head-on right from the start and doing the really deep, difficult work up front, you actually eliminate future friction. Doing the hard thing forces you to strip away all the unessential noise, leaving you with a straight, highly efficient line straight to success.
It really all boils down to this one harsh reality. The easy way is a debt with compound interest, while the hard way is a one-time investment in simplicity. This is such a powerful realization because it shows us that embracing the difficult path isn't about, unnecessary suffering or punishing yourself. It's actually the ultimate form of intelligent efficiency. When you step up and do the hard thing first, you pay the toll up front, and the rest of your life becomes remarkably simple and clear moving forward. But here's the catch. Doing the hard thing goes against absolutely everything our current environment teaches us. Our modern society places the highest possible value on emotional reactions. It's all about feelings over facts and getting that cheap, instant dopamine hit. And at the exact same time, it places incredibly low value on dealing with actual, real-world consequences. In this zombie civilization, people just want the applause without doing the execution. It's literally the modern equivalent of wanting to win a gold medal for intensely visualizing a marathon while you're sitting on the couch eating chips. To break free from that, we have to invert this entire model. We have to start valuing actual, tangible consequences in the real world and completely detach ourselves from needing that cheap, fleeting emotional validation from the crowd.
Which perfectly tees up the next concept from our explainer today. The sources call this outcome independence, and it is essentially the armor of the creator. It's defined as the ability to act with absolute maximum intensity in the present moment while maintaining zero emotional need for the external result. Basically, you execute your plan flawlessly, but your self-worth doesn't fluctuate based on whether you get a win or a loss today. You detach entirely from the outcome, but you commit violently to the process. Just imagine for a second how incredibly freeing that is, to be completely immune to the sting of failure, or even the seduction of praise, all because your only focus is doing the work to the absolute best of your ability.
And the secret is, you can only achieve that profound level of detachment if you possess a true abundance mindset. To become an active creator of your reality, you have to know in your bones that you are the source of value. This whole idea of scarcity that society constantly preaches is just a manufactured illusion designed to control you. Just look around. Opportunities are genuinely infinite. There is endless space out there to build, to create, to forge your own path entirely. But you might be wondering, if everything is so abundant, why do anything at all? Well, it's because your urgency to act no longer comes from some external panic desperation. Instead, it comes from your own uncompromising internal standards. You refuse to compete for scraps because, honestly, you're just too busy building your own table.
Making this leap requires a permanent shift in your core identity. Think about the consumer. The consumer waits for the world to provide opportunities, to offer validation, and ultimately to tell them who they are. But the creator does not ask for permission. A creator generates a reality that is so dense and so powerful internally that they literally force the external world to react to it. You have to stop checking to see if the planets like your light, and you just become the sun. You force them into your orbit through sheer gravity and will.
Okay, so how do we actually practically apply all of this? The source material gives us a pretty sobering, but ultimately super empowering roadmap to reclaim our internal sovereignty. Step 1. Kill the passive spectator. Just stop over-consuming and start producing. Step 2, embrace the friction of reality. Get out there, get your hands dirty in the physical world where real, actual failure is a possibility. Step 3, detach from the outcome. Do the work because it meets your own high standard, not because you're fishing for applause. And finally, step 4, take absolute responsibility for every single thing in your universe. Once you truly accept that final step, there is absolutely no going back to the way things were.
I actually want to linger on that last point for a second, because it is heavy. Absolute responsibility is not a punishment. It's actually the ultimate privilege. If you are sitting around blaming the system or the economy or other people for your current situation, you are literally handing them your power on a silver platter. Embracing radical, absolute responsibility, knowing deep down that if something in your life isn't right, it is entirely on you to fix it, that is the heavy weight of the crown. But guys, it is the only true, reliable escape from the matrix. You own your failures, which means you finally, truly own your freedom.
The weight of being a sovereign creator is immense. It's actually supposed to be heavy. Think about it. If it were light, everyone would do it. So we're going to leave you with this final, provocative reflection to challenge your next move out there. Will you fold under the weight of the crown and just retreat back into that comfortable, foggy illusion of the spectator's stands?
Or will you put in the work to build the necessary strength to wear it, fully accountable for your own awakening in the real world? The choice, as always, is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today, and I'll catch you next time.